So welcome back to another episode, and we're just laughing because I'm so tropical here, and it makes sense because I'm back with my friend Andrew, and we're reviewing Startropics on the NES.
That's an old classic, 1990 now, so 25 years ago.
That's a long time ago.
Something we played back in the day, and we thought since this is something of a reunion, that we would go back and play it again. And that's what we've done. The last couple of days, we've gone back and played Startropics.
It's been an amazing experience because I always remember being at Andrew's place back then, during that summer in 1990, and watching you play this game, and I was just a voyeur on the couch watching you go on this amazing adventure, and I was always so jealous of it, and I've never finished Startropics on my own, so yeah, we decided to go all the way through it, and it's been a hell of an experience. It's amazing to go and play a game from your childhood all over again, and we just really want to review it and give you like some of our feedback on it, what we thought about it. Where should we even start? Let's start back about, how this game even came to be. It was released by Nintendo, but what's interesting about Startropics is it was never released in Japan. It was created in Japan for the American market based on a lot of the success of Zelda. So explaining that, it's a Japanese development team that were working in America to create this game. So where was the first place you saw this game?
Well, back in the day, I had a subscription to Nintendo Power, and the first time we saw Startropics was the cover of, I don't even remember what issue.
I remember there's like a parrot on the cover. That was the issue, and I was like, what is this game? And let's just start. The title is so intriguingly fantastic. Startropics. It sounded so summery and perfect. It was the perfect game for summer.
Yeah, like a mix of space and vacation or something. It was weird. We'd never seen anything quite like it. So basically you are Mike Jones, a high school student, I believe, who is on vacation in the fictitious South Pacific Islands to meet your uncle, Dr. Jones, an archaeologist, if I remember correctly. And as soon as you arrive at the island to meet up with your uncle, his assistant runs out and tells you that he's missing. And you dutifully go to the beach and you find a bottle, and in a bottle is the note from your uncle saying, "Help me, Mike, I've been kidnapped." And that's where you start. Rocking and rolling.
It's kind of funny. It's kind of like Mikey kind of like reminds me of like the Goonies meets Indiana Jones.
That's there's a real vibe in this game of some of that classic stuff at that time, like Indiana Jones, and you even kind of look a little bit like Mikey from Goonies.
Yeah,
so definitely.
So the game is kind of like an RPG-esque Zelda world in the sense that you have an overworld map that you can walk around and talk to people, kind of like Dragon Warrior, find out clues where you're supposed to go next. But then, when you go into a tunnel or a dungeon, that's when it kind of goes into Zelda format.
It's so much like Zelda that it can't possibly be a coincidence. No. The sort of the three-quarter overhead angle and the way the enemies are moving. The big difference, of course, in Startropics is that you can jump, sort of. We'll get to the controls later on, but you can definitely jump in the game, which is something you never could do in Zelda.
So you're right, most of the gameplay is being able to jump around and using your weapons, and you start off with a yo-yo, then you can get a bat.
It's probably the first and maybe the only time I can think of where your main weapon is a yo-yo.
Yeah.
And as you go through the game, you actually get more advanced yo-yos. And the trick of it is that you have to have a certain amount of health to be able to use the higher level yo-yo that you've got. Otherwise, it will revert back to the basic yo-yo. Like in Zelda 1, when you attacked, if you had full health, your sword would actually shoot. Startropics, there's also a bunch of sub-weapons and even magic items. Generally, the sub-weapons are collectibles that you would find in the dungeon, and you have a limited amount of ammunition on them, things like ray guns or baseballs, even the baseball bat. The magic items are things that you would use only in the dungeon to basically get past puzzles. There's a rod of sight that would reveal hidden ghosts, which can be a real bitch because
we got caught in a bunch of dungeons and we're like, how do we get out of this room? And we couldn't figure it out. And then you're like, oh, you have to go and check your other items. Remember that. Check your other items. And so we used the torch. Or that item that reveals the ghost.
So there's like a rod of sight which you can use to reveal hidden ghosts, but you have no idea that there are ghosts in the room to reveal. Only that you've been circling this part of the dungeon forever and ever and can't get out.
Yeah.
And you think, okay, well let's go to the sub menu and see if I can find out something to help. And you've got a rod of sight that you can collect and reveal the ghosts. There's also a lantern magic item you can get because sometimes they put the rooms in total darkness and you can't see anything. And there's water hazards and enemies and
we had no idea. We're like Andrew was memorizing where to jump and how to do it but we didn't have to. We just needed to use a lantern. So there's other really cool ways to navigate the world. One of them is your submarine, and that can go all over the world. That is your main form of transportation between different islands. And at one point in the game really kind of feels like it opens up, and you can explore a lot more of the game.
Lay out the islands in a way that lets you feel like you're actually traveling around an archipelago. And it's a little bit of an illusion because you can never go very far. They say that they change the color of the ocean, and the light-colored ocean is the deep sea, and you can't actually go in there. But you still get the illusion of being able to drive around. And of course, you also can only land in a few select spots, so not quite open world, but it's a start considering it was 1990 in the NES.
And it gave you that illusion at least.
Even though this game is 25 years old, they still had a lot of clever ideas when it came to the subplots and some of the little sub-quests. Things like rescuing the dolphin and a talking dolphin.
Yeah.
That made for a really interesting boss encounter with the octopus that was keeping him imprisoned.
Yeah.
And then later on, the dolphins came to help you later on in the quest.
Yeah.
You also, at one point in the game, you got eaten by a whale.
That was a cool bit.
That was really cool and unexpected. I didn't remember that at all 25 years later. But you basically are going through the maze inside the whale's guts trying to get him to sneeze you out. Also, the parrot.
Yeah.
There was one hut in one of the islands, and there's a full-screen parrot. Peter the parrot.
Yeah.
And you basically go on a quest for him to give him some food. But this was a full-screen rendering, really, of a parrot. We've never seen that before.
And that's something to be said, is that when you run into a character that's important in the game, you get a full-screen animated version of that character. And it was like, I know it sounds stupid, but it's the closest you had to virtual reality or to feeling that you were really in the game. And it's all these years later, and I was really impressed with how good they looked. The parrot and the chiefs looked really good. Also something that we got a little caught up on, and this reminded me of the Goonies again, was the piano section of the game, where you talk to the parrot. Is it the parrot?
Yeah, it's the parrot.
Yeah.
Once you've got the food for the parrot, he gives you a very subtle clue.
Yeah, like do, ra, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, lo.
Yeah.
So yeah, what you're supposed to play on this piano. You don't know that at the time. So I took a screenshot with my phone so we'd remember. And then when we got in there and there's a piano, Andrew was playing all the keys, and I had to say what the parrot was saying to play. And that reminded me of the Goonies when Mikey was playing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that was really cool. So playing this game was an experience. It was a fun experience for a little bit of time, but
for most of it, but not at the end. Ugh.
When it gets to, there's 8 chapters?
I think so.
There's 8 chapters. And when you get to like chapter 6, things start to ramp up and it starts to get insane. I mean, insane. Really, really tough. We were really struggling with some of the later levels. It was mental. I don't even know how you did it, like all those years ago when, we were both working on it together this time. So it was a little bit easier to get through, but still.
So, spoiler alert for people who somehow have not heard what's happened in Startropics in the last 25 years. The last 2 chapters are on an alien spaceship, and the difficulty of the game just goes bananas. You got stuff like those pink motorcycle guys that were ramming us, and a bunch of these troopers who were shooting at you. It was just awful.
Mass hysteria. And that's the thing in the story. The story takes a really cool bit, a really cool twist, when you find out that what your uncle had come across was this alien pod from a planet that had self-destructed or been attacked by aliens.
So basically it was an escape pod. Some
That's right.
conqueror aliens, I'm not sure if they really even get into much detail on that, were invading an alien world, and the last act of that alien world was to release this escape pod, and it crashed in Earth. And that's what your uncle, the archaeologist, was investigating when he got kidnapped.
So one of the most unusual things in Startropics is it comes with a letter. This comes in the box itself from your uncle, Uncle Steve, which is very, very nice. But at one point in the game, it asks you to put this letter into water to reveal something. And when you initially are playing this game, you're like, Are they talking about a letter in the game itself? They wouldn't want us to physically, because you'd never heard about that before.
Right, it's very confusing, and the game is pretty vague. It's like, is this an item I missed or something?
Yeah. So who'd ever thought that you pull out something like this and put it into water? That was scary. So most people didn't do it. And imagine this back then. You rented the game, okay? You rented the game, and it didn't come with this. Or you buy it used.
Or you bought it used.
Holy, you're fucked.
Yeah, you couldn't progress without the clue that was hidden in this note once you dunked it in the water.
We remembered what it was because it was so many years ago. But what we're going to do, for the sake of this review, we're going to do this afterwards and edit it in, is we're going to put this into water and see if the clue shows up and show you the results of that. So we'll do that now. Okay, so we've never personally done this before. This is going to be an experiment. Here's our water, and here's our note. And we're going to see if something appears right here when we put it into the water. So, Kim, we're going to go down into the water right now. So, here goes the experiment. This is scary.
25 years in the making.
Oh my goodness. Oh my god, there you go.
It works!
Look at that. So there's what you need for the game. Frequency 747.
So at some point towards the end of the game, the robot asks you to input the frequency. And if you don't enter 747, you can't progress in the game. And the only source is this piece of paper.
Wow, it showed up.
That is so cool. After 25 years, it still works. Chemistry is awesome.
And look at this, we're taking it out again. I guess we'll put it. Could you imagine you buy a game and then you're dunking this into water? This is ridiculous.
There's a reason why no one ever tried to do this again.
But look at that, it totally works. Totally works.
So cool.
Look at this. Sorry, it's like dripping with water. It's ridiculous. So that's cool. We finally got a chance to do it. So on to the music. The music is very memorable. The opening cinematic when you just see Startropics and that beautiful music plays. That's something I've always remembered 25 years later.
And it's all very tropically themed. It really fits the South Pacific Island motif in the game. It really works.
It really works for the mood, setting up the game. And then you start playing the game, and I gotta tell you, when you get into dungeons and you hear that damn song, and you hear it a lot, it is so freaking good though. It's so good that you can hear it 1,000 times and it really stands up. And the music is pretty much the same, very catchy, all the way to the end. And at the end, there's another song that's introduced. That's a lot like the first songs that are introduced.
It's kind of a remix, but at that point you're glad to have a bit of change.
A little bit of change, but music overall is really good. I gotta say, one of the biggest things that shocked me about this game, because I've never seen it all the way to the end, like 25 years ago, I never saw the ending of it. You did. But I gotta say, the cinematics blew my mind nowadays watching them. I couldn't believe that they were off the NES at the end of this game. I was like, holy cow, I forgot that the NES was so powerful. It could do a lot of things, and they were squeezing everything they could out of this game.
And this was before the Super Nintendo, so this was not late stages of the NES the way the Startropics sequel was. This was still mainline NES time.
Yeah. So 25 years ago, you finished this game. 25 years later, we finished the game now. What do you think of Startropics? What do you take away from all of this?
I can remember being in love with the game in the day because I'm such a huge fan of Zelda, and Startropics really scratched that itch. Now, obviously, we've gone on and done amazing things in video games in the last 25 years, but it still has that magical quality that you get from Zelda. And I think that's why Startropics still works today. Yeah. It's a sweet story with a lot of heart. Nothing particularly violent or scary. It's just a good kid's story. A lot like the Goonies.
Yeah, a lot like the Goonies. And so many, that's something we haven't talked about, so many great boss battles, so many hair-pulling boss battles, but very fulfilling when you were able to finish some of these. Like, I mean, some of them you're like, oh my god, how are you ever going to do this? And you're like, oh, I just get rid of that block, and the creature falls.
Yeah, that lava boss where he was on his little island and you had to break the blocks to get him to sink in the water. You couldn't hit him, you just had to sink him in the water. Yeah. Just really a great idea, but a bitch to pull off. Ugh.
Yeah, and really the chunk of the game is spent in dungeons, walking around using your items that we brought up at the beginning, finding secret doors and stuff like that. So It's a very big, heavy action puzzle game, really. That's really what it's all about. Action platforming puzzle game. Very, very frustrating at times, but very charming, very Zelda. And what I take away from the game is just charming as a motherfucker. I mean,
really is. It still is.
Yeah, I really had a good time the last bunch of nights playing Startropics, reliving our youth. And I would recommend it, but the controls are a little sluggish.
It takes some getting used to. It's pretty slidey. It's grid-based. You can't move diagonally. You can only move in the cardinal directions, but you can kind of slide between areas. It's hard to explain, but you're going to get killed by it if you decide to go back and play Startropics, and you know exactly what I mean. And you'll love it just the way we do.
Guys, this has been a review 25 years in the making. We've been dying to talk about this game, dying to play it, and we were able to play the game and capture all of the footage for it over the last few days, and we're really happy we did. So anyways, guys, until next time.